Like
Yeah,
when
I
you're
don't
in
know.
when you're in college and you're trying to save every penny you can, that the ramen goes a long way, man.
Yeah, man.
Now
Crack
when
some
you're like
ramen
in
and
your
egg,
30s,
microwave some potatoes.
and now when you're in your 30s and you actually have money you can spend on food and drink, you're like, maybe I should be a little more refined and choose what I want instead of just putting stuff in my mouth just to put it in my mouth.
Yeah, I used to be all about those Jack in the Box 99-cent tacos, 2 for
Mm.
99 cents. Uh I hate those things. They're gross.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Anime Club After Dark, the podcast that delves into all things anime, manga, and otaku culture related. I'm your host, Alex, but you can call me Senpai. And joining me tonight, I just have our czar of source material, John.
Oh wait, I had something prepared for this. Hold on.
Oh, you did? Oh God, he's not prepared. Oh wait, I'm curious because I don't know what he's doing. Oh, very nice. Nice. Oh my God,
I
nice
promised
hat. Nice hat.
my my mother came back from Thailand and she bought
Oh.
this hat for my wife, and my
Mm.
wife, I promised her that I would wear it on a recording once. So there it is. There it goes.
There you go. I hope she's happy. Uh, so a couple of things before we get into what we're talking about tonight. One, I apologize for my voice. I'm still recovering from bronchitis. I'm almost back to 100%, but not quite there yet. I'll try to mute myself if I ever do cough, but just apologies up front for that. Also, um, by the time this comes out, it'll be about 2 weeks later. But I do want to say thank you to the guys on the podcast for my wonderful Christmas gift. Thank you guys. I
You
was
mean
not
birthday
expecting you
gift.
to get me anything.
Birthday gift.
What'd I
Not
say?
Christmas. You said
Oh,
Christmas.
birthday gift. Excuse me.
Like we're way
Excuse
past
me.
Christmas.
Excuse me. We're also recording this on my birthday, so happy birthday, me,
Happy
I guess.
birthday, Alex!
On that note, since we are here, John and I am gonna go ahead and have a little pour one out for myself right here on my birthday. And some of you may ask, how old am I? That's none of your fucking business.
He's turned 25 for the, I want to say, 9th time.
That's about right. I'm 34. Anyway,
25 for the 9th time.
cheers.
Cheers.
Mm. Oh, that is damn good scotch, by the way.
I'm so jealous. I want some.
Yeah, it's Macallan 15-year Highland single malt Scotch whiskey, and it's really really good. So thank you guys for my wonderful birthday present. I will definitely be enjoying it over the next few weeks. Anyway, should we get started? What we're gonna be talking about tonight, John?
Yeah.
All right. So you actually suggested this topic, John, and I'm glad you did.
And so I suggested the topic of like, what about an episode where we talk about animes that surprised us, whether good or bad, right?
Mhm.
Because I watched one specific show, and I talked ad nauseum about it in our
The
monthly
monthly
dump.
dump.
Yeah, with me and Shinoda. And that was Butareba. That was the pig liver anime. The Kirito turns into a pig. And
Funniest shit I've ever seen.
funniest shit I've ever
By
seen.
the way, I was not one of the very few episodes of this podcast I have not been on because I was so sick. And I actually got to watch that episode as like a viewer of the podcast. That show sounds dark.
Yo, I honestly, I'm waiting for the last episode to air because it only had the first 11, and I think they had to delay the 12th episode or something. I
Oh,
think it's been like 2 weeks and episode 12 still hasn't come out, so I'm not sure where the last
production
episode.
delays.
I honestly, I'm like, I need to know the ending.
Closure.
Yeah, because it finally, episode 11 goes over, like it comes to the ending, and I'm like, okay, what happens now? I need to see the resolution. I need to see. I'm like, oh man, I'm getting blue balled right now.
Blue
But
Balls the anime.
yeah, after watching Butareba, because I'm pretty sure it was Natai that was like, oh, is that the incest, or not incest, the bestiality one? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And it's like the pig one, and I'm like, no, I'm not. That's not the isekai I'm talking about. He's just like, and I was like, what are you talking about? What pig bestiality isekai?
What have you been
And
watching, Natai?
yeah, and I'm like, "What?" Apparently people were talking about it, and so I had to check it out, right? And I was like, I looked at the reviews on Mal,
Mm.
and I looked at the reviews on Crunchyroll, and it's like Crunchyroll, it was sitting at a stay like it's at the 3.8 right now.
It's not
But
great, but it's
I'm
not
pretty
awful
sure.
either.
Well, I mean, for Crunchyroll, anything lower than like 4.6 is bad.
I guess.
Yeah, I don't know why the reviews are like that, but Crunchyroll is a weird scale of like
Well,
4
it's like
point.
Mal. Every time someone rates something less than a 7 on Mal, they say, "Oh, it's the worst thing ever." It's like, no, it's just above average if it's a 6.
Yeah, Crunchyroll scale is weird. There's a bunch of fives and a bunch of fours. They barely use ones and threes and
And
stuff.
5 is the highest it can be on Crunchyroll.
Yeah, but for a show that's under 4.6, typically that means it's a pretty generally in general it's a terrible show.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, people are hating on this because it's an isekai, so there's detractors of isekai. And then there's
Like,
the fact that yeah, like Alex, and then there's the fact that people are like, "Oh, he's like a perverted pig," but like that's gross. Like this is a gross concept. And I'm like, "Okay." So I had to watch it to see what the fuck it was about. And after watching the first episode, I was just like, "Well, it wasn't that perverted. Like he acts like a perverted guy because he's like, "Oh, please call me a pig. Please demean me." And it's like, "Ah, I get it. He's a piggy otaku and he wants to
yeah.
be called Mr. Pig." It's like, okay, yeah. Phenomenal voice acting by Kirito, by the way.
So
He
I,
did
I
a
want to I want to point this out. We always call him Kirito because I can never remember his actual name. It's like his most prominent voice role that he's ever done.
I
But this dude is a phenomenal voice actor.
yeah, he plays Beetlejuice.
Yeah, Beetlejuice
Beetle
Romane Canti. Des.
yeah. So he's a good voice actor. I just will always call him Kirito because I that's what I know him as.
It's like we
But
always call Dio Dio.
Dio, yeah, Dio's always Dio, man.
Dio is always Dio.
So after the first episode, I continue to watch it, and then you get to episode two. You know how episode one ends. You're like, oh, what the fuck's going on? And then you get to episode two, you learn more about the story. You're like, yo, what? It's a pretty fucked up world. Like what? And yeah, it surprised me because I was like, this is actually a pretty good story so far. A little bit predictable in my
Mm.
opinion, because by episode three, I predicted exactly what was going to happen, and uh, like it's still like a good adventure story, and it's like the learning about this world and how dark it is, like the way they treat it's about a slave class of people, right? Called the Yema, I think it was, or Yethma.
Yethma is what you called it in the
Yeah,
monthly dump.
they're like some form of slave class, and this is a world that has magic, but only the Yethma can access healing magic. So it's like it talks about that in episode one, and then you learn like, oh, Yethma are hunted for their magical powers. They can get parted out and stuff like that. And it's like there's only two rules in this world: a Yethma cannot be sexually assaulted, and a Yethma cannot travel by like in any form of transportation. And it's just weird, It's like those are the only
Mm.
two rules surrounding Yethma. So it's like, well, you can treat them like slaves. They don't really fight back, and everything
You
gets
can treat
answered
them like shit to a point.
to a point, as long as you don't sexually assault them. Does that stop evil humans from doing that and then killing them? No.
John, are you telling me that criminals don't obey the fucking law? What?
Yeah, and it's like you meet one of the girls that they say it's also a Yethma that like she's been trafficked basically,
Mm.
and it's just sad, bro. I was like, oh my god,
Hearing you
it's
guys in the monthly dump talk about this show, like, when I heard it was an isekai, I immediately turned my brain off. But then hearing you guys talk about it and how dark the actual world is kind of makes me want to watch it to learn about this world.
it's really good of a show. Like I like
It's
everything that happens
dark,
in
but it sounds good.
and it's not too graphic or anything like that. It's a little bit graphic at some points, I'd say. Towards
Mm.
the end, like you get to see more graphic things, and instead of implying things, they like it's a little bit more like you see like, oh, he takes off his pants while he has her pinned down, and you're like, oh, that
Oh,
is terrible.
ooh woo.
Yeah, and I think that everyone hated Buchareba because of the whole concept of, oh, it's just a guy who reincarnates as a pig. But
Mm,
when he reincarnates, he doesn't have any superpowers or anything, and it's like it doesn't follow any typical stereotypical isekai tropes. It's just a guy, and he's just like, oh, this girl who's super nice to me. Like I want to make sure she gets to her destination. Like she
mhm.
is his charge, and then you just get to explore the world as they survive and get to the end goal. So
Okay.
I honestly would recommend that. I wasn't gonna talk about it again since
But here we
I
are talking about it
here we
again.
because it was one of the ones that I had very low expectations for
Mhm.
because, it sounds like a pretty dumb concept, right? And based off of the trailer and stuff like that, I'm like, "Oh, it's a pretty dumb concept," but, I
Yeah.
was misled.
I feel
It
like when you go into something with low or 0 expectations and it, like, just is a bang up job of a show, it's very gratifying when you do that when that happens.
Yeah. So, that's watching Butareba is what spawned me, like, we should probably talk about shows that just either they were overhyped or they were, freaking sleeper hits, like,
Yeah.
animes that surprised us.
I feel like we don't talk about that much on this podcast, like the sleeper hits in
Yeah,
general.
because I feel like a lot of anime, Anitubers in general talk about things that are popular, like, "Oh,
Jujutsu
let's talk
Kaisen
about Jujutsu Kaisen season 2 was pretty good.
or
Oh,
Demon
One
Slayer.
Piece is real. Oh, Demon Slayer. Oh," like, yeah, I've
My
heard
Hero
that a million
Academia.
times. Yeah, and, like, I hear about those so often, but I don't hear about, like, Butareba or, one of my other ones that I subbed onto this list, Magical Destroyers, right?
Yes.
If
Which is
anyone
one that surprised me too.
I have talked about Magical Destroyers a little bit in our previous monthly dumps, but Magical Destroyers, you watch the trailer and you think, okay, this anime is just another magical girl anime. And if you're a veteran anime watcher, you have seen plenty of magical girl anime. It's like, how many more twists can they put on magical girls,
How
right?
many
Like,
more Madoka clones do we have
yeah,
to
how many
see?
more Madoka clones do we need to make, man? Come on, like we've seen it already. But even Madoka's still around, man. We're making more
By the
movies.
way, quick side tangent. Speaking of magical girls, I started watching Gushing Over Magical Girls. Holy shit!
Is that yeah? Is it just straight up porn?
Uh, it's not far off.
Yeah, it's just like pervy and stuff.
Yeah. I guess it's like a Madoka, but what if Madoka was like a raging lesbian and evil?
I was like, well, that's Madoka's kind of a freaking raging lesbian. What are you talking about? Her and
Well,
Honoka?
no, Madoka isn't a raging lesbian. She's got eyes for, or the one person has eyes for because she's a raging lesbian.
Oh, but yeah. So Magical Destroyers is a very good anime for anyone who's a veteran weeb. If you've
Mm.
watched a bunch of anime, you're like, oh, I've been watching anime for like 20 years or 15 years, 10 years, whatever. I think you would quite enjoy it. There's a lot of meta
If you're new to
commentary.
anime, this will turn you off anime forever.
If you're new to anime, you don't understand the meta commentary that they make and the amount of symbolism that they have in the show. Like it I I liked the ending. Like I don't think it was a terrible ending. But I do know that a lot of people were turned off by the ending because 'cause they're like, "Oh, what the fuck?" But I'm like,
I understand why people didn't like the ending because the first time I watched it, I was like, eh. But then I thought about it for a while and I'm like, that's not so bad the more I think about it.
well, because it stayed true to, like, its theme. That
Yeah.
that that was the more important part to me. It stayed true to its theme, central theme, the indomitable spirit of the weeb. And I'm like,
Yes.
"Yeah, I liked it. I liked it." You know?
Which is really what it's about. Like, if you watch this and you don't actually think about the stuff that's being said, you're going to think, well, this is kind of a generic magical girl show, which if you're not analyzing it at all, yeah, you're going to come away with that. But if you actually listen to the things you're saying, as weird as some of the stuff they're doing is, like, it's a general commentary on like otaku culture.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's a pretty decent anime, and people veteran watchers at least should give it a shot.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I also want to point out it doesn't exactly paint otaku and weebs in the best light 100% of the time, which I think is to its credit.
yeah, because So one thing about the show is that it doesn't just talk about anime otaku.
Mm.
So for the people who don't know, otaku just means like
Fanatic.
you're obsessed with something. You
Yeah.
could be like a military otaku, you could be a car otaku, you
Train
could be any.
otaku.
Yeah. Oh god, train otaku are the worst. Uh, I'm serious. They are the worst. You see that story about? All right, I'm about to side tangent about Japanese news, but uh, there was I guess a Westerner that got in the middle of a train shot. He's like riding. He's riding his bicycle, right?
Mhm.
And these train otaku are set up to take a picture of this
I think I
rare
know what you're
train.
talking about.
Yeah. And basically, they're just like, "What the hell is wrong with you? You know, like you should fucking die." Like they literally like, "Shit, back again, yeah. Okay, no, okay." They're like, "Well, what about you pay us then? You pay us." And they're like trying to shake down this guy. And of course, this catches on fire on Japanese social media because tr- foreigner does weird thing is very popular in Japan.
Mm.
Um, because that's all the rage right now, thanks to like some really bad actors in Japan, which is a shame. Respect people's cultures, guys. Come on, don't be a
I feel like
fucking.
some of that's also like all these Japanese VTubers like talking about American culture too. Probably spurs that on a little bit.
I don't know. I just know that there are a couple of like people, vloggers and stuff that go to people who go to Japan, foreigners who go to Japan, and they just are fucking
Total dicks.
asshats. Yeah, and it's like
Like the
Japan
one
already
dude, I
has a
can't remember his
problem.
I can't remember his name, but the dude that would go on to like public trains and just do pranks, and these pranks are
Yeah,
like
trying to
dousing
ride the
people in.
Shinkansen for free.
Yeah, or he's like going on to like throwing mango juice on it. Like that's not a prank, bro. That's assault.
Yeah, like ever since freaking Logan Paul, was that the guy who went to Japan and did it?
The one that the suicide forest
The
thing.
Suicide Forest guy? That was Logan
As it
Paul,
was one of
right?
the Paul brothers. I don't remember which one. Jake
I'm
Paul, Logan Paul.
I'm pretty sure it was Logan Paul. But essentially, ever since he went and started doing that shit, other degenerates decided to follow suit and be like, "Oh, we're gonna go to Japan and do weird shit to the Japanese people." And Japan's already super xenophobic as it is,
Yeah, you don't need an excuse to make him more xenophobic.
so it's terrible. And basically, the train otaku are like shooting this. They're upset, clearly, but train otaku are not very well liked by the Japanese public
Mm,
because they are assholes. They will yell at anyone. It doesn't matter if you're a foreigner or not. They will yell at you if you ruin their shot. And it's like you're walking on a public space. So this foreigner, this Westerner, he was just riding his bike through there. He wasn't trying to ruin the shot or nothing. He was just riding it through, right? Because
mhm.
he's on a bike. And
Just
at first I
enjoying
thought,
his day, going about his day.
yeah, well, at first I thought he was trying to ruin the shot and be an asshole, but as it turns out, no, he was just riding the bike. Like it was a public space. They didn't
Yeah.
have any right to shoot there. And a lot of train otaku, they don't care about people's rights to using public sidewalks and stuff like that. They'll fucking harass people and they literally tell him to go die because he ruined their shot. And it's like, so otaku are kind of just obsessed people, but train otaku are the fucking worst because they're a different breed of like degenerate, in my opinion.
I
But
knew
you can say
someone
that for like a lot of different otaku, right?
I
There's
knew
a lot of
someone when I was in
degenerates in there.
college that was like that with trains, except they weren't going out and taking pictures of trains. They built model trains in their apartment.
Yeah, no, a bunch of train otaku will like get dangerously close to trains and like illegally set up shots where they can get like rare shots of these rare trains and shit like that. And they don't ask for permission or nothing. They just do it.
Yeah.
And when they don't get their way, they're like little bitches about it. And it's like, you fucking come on.
But
So
anyway, magical
yeah,
destroyers.
Magical Destroyers is pretty good. The commentary on otaku-ness in general is, I think, a really good one. I think I'm pretty sure I rated an 8 out of 10, right?
I think it was an 8 or a 9.
Pretty sure it was an 8 out of 10 when
I think I
when we
gave it
did
an 8
the
out of 10 too.
but I recommend it.
Yeah, magical destroyers is good. And Pink made me feel things. I'm just saying.
Pig just reminds you of your stereotypical
She's a
Florida
Florida
tweak.
girl.
She's a Florida girl, yeah.
She's a tweaker. She's
Drugs?
literally a tweaker. She just wants she's drugs? Drugs where? Give me drugs.
Oh, Lord. Moving on, Alex.
Yes. Oh, I guess I should pick something off my list. I want to talk about the Eminence and Shadow because we don't talk about that enough on this podcast.
I
I
am so
am
surprised.
atomic.
Atomic. I am so surprised that you took to Eminence and Shadow as much as you have.
Is it really that simple? John.
I know. So I remember watching Eminence and Shadow and then being like, yo, this is pretty funny. I love it. Right. And I remember pretty sure it was Chinoda that watched it before us, but I don't think it was Chinoda that recommended it. I think it was I want to say it was Classy Ulysses that recommended this
It was
show to
because he
me.
was talking about it every single week in our Discord server.
I'm pretty sure he was. So I gave it a shot.
Hmm.
And it's it's got so many tropes in it, like MC, the isekai world, the harem trope stuff.
Truck Coon.
Truck Kun makes an appearance, literally
Yeah.
Truck Kun. But it's because of how ridiculous it is that it works. Like, it's not a serious story by far.
And it leans very heavily into its ridiculousness.
Yeah. And it's very similar to Overlord, where it's basically the supporting cast and side characters that really hold the show up, because I love the world building. I love everything that happens in the background. And then there's the fucking MC that just shows up and it's like, haha, I destroy everything with one hit.
I am atomic.
So continue, Alex.
Oh, I mean, so I went into this because like we said, there was a few people in the Discord server, probably Chinoda included. They were like every week when a new episode would come out during the first season would be like, yeah, this is fucking great. You should watch this. You should watch this. And when the first season ended, I finally broke down and I watched the whole thing all the way through over the course of 2 nights in our
Mhm.
Discord server. Right, we did a watch along in our Discord server, and oh my god, I was in love with this from like episode 1. When I first saw the MC and he's like even before he gets like is he reincarnated? Yeah, he's reincarnated because he
Yeah.
dies
Yeah,
in
he's
the real
isekai
world. Like even
or
in his
tensei.
real world, like he's such a chuny in the real world. I'm like, yes, I'm here for this. Just go slay king, slay. um and he's like he's the same person when he reincarnates. Like this anime has no like high-minded ideals. It has no illusions of like it being something more than what it is. It's just a fun adventure, and I
Yeah.
love it for that.
I mean, like, the main character literally is like, "Yeah, I'm surrounded by a bunch of beautiful girls, but I can't have sex with anyone because I have to be a virgin."
Exactly,
I,
because he knows the rule of chunies is if you have sex, you're no longer a chunie.
yeah. So he literally says that. It's I thought it was a great watch just because it's just fun and it's well animated. The action sequences are awesome.
I also love the scenes where he's just brooding.
Yeah, I love the inner dialogue, the inner monologuing that he does. Like when he's setting up his room for like, oh, someone's gonna show up. I have to set the room and set the mood. So like, I'm gonna go steal these paintings and set them up here. I'm gonna get this 100-year-old vintage wine, and then
Yes.
he sits there just waiting for her to show up so he can be like, a fine 100-year-old. He set it everything up for a bit. It's like, what the fuck?
I also love that scene during the first season where there's all this crazy shit going on around him, and then he's just walking around in this building and he finds a piano and he sits down and starts playing Moonlight Sonata. I'm like,
Yeah.
could you be any more stereotypically chuny?
Yeah, I think that the hype around Eminence and Shadow is well worth it just because it's a fun time. Like, it's not a
Yeah.
serious show. It's not something that you have to pay attention to. It's something you could really just watch in the background.
And
But
I
I think it
think
would be
the reason I went into this was so like low expectations is because it was pitched to me as an isekai, and a lot of the people that were recommending it to me are people I know who will sit and watch the trashiest isekai.
bro, why you gotta call me out like that?
It wasn't just you. I was mostly thinking about Shinoda.
That's true. His
Because let's be honest, at least you will get to like episode 5 of a shitty isekai and be like, bro, this is a fucking waste of time.
yeah, then I'll still watch it. That doesn't
But at least
stop.
you'll recognize that it's a waste of
Oh
time.
yeah, no,
Shinoda, on the other hand, will go through mental gymnastics to
to
justify
justify
watching it.
why it's really good. And it's like it's not.
Like, bro, but the sound design was good. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I can separate myself from like I can just because it's a bad show doesn't mean I can't enjoy it.
Mm.
I can enjoy bad things. I think it's fine to do that.
Sometimes you can just sit and laugh at how bad it is.
Yeah. It's like sometimes a show is just god awful, but I continue to watch it. Like Isekai Smartphone is god awful, and I
Oh
continue to
my god, no.
I'm so excited for season 3, man. When they go fight the phase phrase. Oh man. He's gonna
Man, that
collect
that
his
dude
9
that dude must
waifus.
have the best battery in that smartphone.
Well, it was a smartphone given to him by God, so
Oh, wow. Listen.
it literally has Google in it, built-in Chat GPT Google for
Nice,
magic skills and whatnot.
nice. For people who haven't seen Eminence in Shadow, yes, I 100% recommend it. Especially if you've ever seen Konosuba and you like Konosuba, you'll probably like Eminence in Shadow. It's just like a slightly more dramatic version of Konosuba.
I would say Konosuba is more of a joke though on
It's a
it,
parody of isekai.
yeah, it's a inside like not inside joke. It's a self-aware parody of isekai. Like it's
Yeah,
supposed to be like it's supposed to be a fun like we're not taking this seriously at all. Like literally at all.
I don't think Eminence in Shadow takes itself super seriously either.
Well, I think the background characters and the story and
Oh,
stuff
the
are
background, yeah, the
mega
background characters
serious.
do for sure. The
Yeah,
main
like there's a
character don't take it seriously at all.
but the background stuff of like, the demon blood and all that stuff, the cursed children and
Yeah.
all the stuff that happens. It's like it's actually kind of good. And the only problem, so it's like if you got rid of the main character guy, right?
Hmm.
Like his whole chuny personality, like if we saw Sid, the main character, through the eyes of the supporting cast of like the super genius Sid, super
Yeah.
mega combatant Sid, then it would actually be a pretty okay like combat drama like anime.
Yeah.
But because we know how Sid is and we go through his eyes, we're just like, it's a fucking joke. Everything's a fucking game to him. It's a fucking joke.
Also, before we move on, I would be remiss if I didn't say Delta best girl.
Oh I love Delta's action so much. And so I think that the anime has done the show a lot better than the manga has.
Really?
Um there are certain so I've been watching because I like to rewatch the combat scene sometimes. And for whatever reason, YouTube was like, "Hey, here are some people, other anti-tubers comparing and contrasting the episodes to the manga chapters." And
Hmm.
I believe this is based off the light novel instead of the manga. But
Okay.
I've only read the manga. I should probably read the light novel, but I have like 3 other light novels I'm fucking trying to get through right now. So it's on the back burner. Once I get through the other 3, I'll go read it. But I remember reading the panels and comparing and contrasting. I'm like the scene with in season 2 with Delta fighting John Smith. Like
Yes.
it's they didn't have a battle in the manga.
Oh,
Literally John Smith starts doing his monologue, then Delta just like instantly goes, "Oh, I know who you are." And it's just like, "Oh, okay. There was no combat."
can I just say also the names in this show are fucking great. Perv
Oh yeah.
asshat.
Doemu, Doemu Ketsu whatever. Yeah, pervy ass hat. His friend Potato,
Potato.
the other guy Skel Elton. When and then his literal under what was it? Mundane man.
Mundane man. Yes. I love the names in this.
Yeah, it's just like another layer of like it's not a serious show at all.
No. No. So if you like stuff like that where it's stories that don't take themselves too seriously and there's OPMC, you'll love Eminence and Shadow. Go
And
watch
the
it. Go.
animation's really good.
Oh yeah, the animation is spectacular.
And sound design's freaking amazing.
Yeah. There's a lot to like about Eminence and Shadow, especially the main character. He's great. Best boy of 2023.
All right, so I know people are gonna roll their eyes when I say this, but not all Chinese anime are bad. Okay.
Just 90% of them are.
Just listen, there's a lot of bad ones out there, but I
To
want to
be
talk
fair, there's a
about
lot of bad anime in general out
yeah,
there.
there's a lot of bad anime. Like it's not just I remember like 7 years ago when Chinese anime were really like starting to come out. It was rough. They were like poor animation budget, poor design and choices in general, and it's just like it was just poor in general, right?
Everything was given to the B teams at every one of these studios.
I'm not sure if they were given to the B teams, but just everything about it was just terrible. But I really enjoyed the daily life of the Immortal King. Now, I've talked about this on the Discord a lot, but I
Mm.
I haven't really talked about it that much on any of our episodes. But it's basically One Punch Man meets wuxia. And if you don't know what wuxia is, it means martial heroes. It's basically like martial artists traveling around and just doing martial artist stuff in
Kung
ancient
Fu.
China. Yeah, it's kung fu, right? Show me your kung fu.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
That is a wuxia film, yes. But
It's a phenomenal movie too.
I went into daily life of Immortal King just going like I didn't know what it was. When I came across it, and I was just looking for something to watch while I was like well, I had nothing to do at work on one of the weekends I was working, and I'm like, I watch something. I'm like, what is it? Daily Life of the Immortal King? Sure, why not? Let's watch this. And then my first thought was, oh, it's in Chinese. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't mind Chinese anime, mainly because I discovered the King's Avatar, and I was just like, I love the King's Avatar. It's an amazing. I liked the anime. I really liked reading the web novel.
There's a live
So
action version of that now too, isn't there?
there was a live action Netflix series about it, yes.
Hmm.
That covers, like, the first 60% of the book, so but the live action one was god awful because they used stupid fucking CG. But, The King's Avatar season 1, it had really rough CG and really not amazing art and animation,
Hmm.
but it was super popular, so season 2, it the OVA, the Battle All Stars arc, and then subsequently season 2 are and the movie, by the way, they also got an animated movie that has, like, a prequel. Beautifully animated, amazing combat sequences, great music, great sound design, and just amazing voice acting. But because I discovered The King's Avatar, I was like, "You know what? Maybe not all Chinese anime are bad." So I'm not instantly turned off by just hearing like, "Oh, they speak in Chinese," right? In fact, with the recent boom in Korean manhwa being adapted, or Korean novels and manhwa being adapted into anime, I kind of want to hear what it sound like in Korean because I used to watch K dramas and stuff too. So I don't mind listening to Korean. I don't understand Korean as much as I understand Japanese, and I barely understand Chinese. But there's something about listening to it in its native tongue that it's supposed to be voiced in that makes it
Mm.
better and more authentic to me. I don't know, it's a weird thing. But
Yeah.
with the daily life of an Immortal King, it's funny, dude. It's One Punch Man levels of like comedy, right? Like this it's literally about a guy who gets born and he's like the strongest motherfucker in the world. And that's it. That's the joke. Every episode they do something and he's just like uses his mega ultra powers to like he's trying to conceal his powers and stuff like that. And everyone around him doesn't realize how strong he is, other than like the strong people who got saved by him. Like
Hmm.
one of the captain of the Guardians or whatever it was, he like calls him Master because he's like, Master, you saved me when you were a child. Like it's literally the first episode where like the demon king frog is about to like destroy the earth or something. And the main character, as a 5-year-old kid, is like going to the store to get snacks because he really likes eating the ramen snacks. And he drops his snacks so that he fucking drop kicks the demon frog guy that's about to destroy the world because he drops his goddamn snacks because the demon frog made him drop his
Overreact
snacks.
much?
Yeah. So from the get-go, from episode 1, it sets the tone of like this is what the show is about. And it's like that every single episode. And I am here for it. It is fucking hilarious. And right now it's actually on season 4. I haven't started season 4 yet, but I really
So this is
enjoyed
an
the
anime
first
adaptation, or is this a anime studio making this, or is this like a Chinese like
Chinese studio.
animation studio?
It's a
Okay,
Chinese animation studio, and it's made in China and stuff like that. But
okay.
it's voiced in Chinese, but it's on Crunchyroll for whatever reason, and
Wonder
it's
if it has a
hilarious.
Japanese dub, because that would be funny to hear.
I don't know if I would enjoy listening to it in Japanese because again, I have a weird thing about like native tongues. Like
Hmm.
sometimes, for example, I just watched Metallic Rouge, Did you see
Mm.
my message about it, Alex?
I saw that, and I really want to check this out because when we talked about it during
The
winter
preview.
season preview,
Yeah,
and it gives off like Blade Runner esque vibes, and I'm here for it.
it does. It definitely does in the first half, and then the second half turns into a different story. But I still like the story. I love the animation. It's Bones did an outstanding job with the animation, bro.
I didn't realize this at the time of recording the review, but Bones is making this as a celebration of their 25th anniversary.
Yeah, it's an anime original.
Yeah.
So it's
I didn't realize they were making it to celebrate their 25th anniversary, but I guess that's cool.
I am pretty I'm less critical of and original
Anime
animes.
originals.
Yeah.
Well, they have no source material to live up to.
Yeah. I so it's hard to have expectations. It's hard to get disappointed in stuff when you don't have any expectations.
Yeah.
So you can only go up from there, right?
And, with an anime original, you're probably going to get a complete story.
I'm pretty
Probably.
sure. I mean, I thought it was good, but for Metallic Rouge, literally in the first scene, there's a girl who sings at a bar. She
Mhm.
sings in English,
Oh,
and all of them like have English kind of English names. So listening to the English dub is really good.
mm.
I'm gonna watch it in English compared to instead of Japanese. The Japanese dub is okay. It's not bad, but I really enjoyed the English.
I've been watching Pluto on Netflix, which is a absolutely phenomenal anime adaptation of a manga. By the way, one of the best manga adaptations I've ever seen for a manga that I've read. Um, and the English dub is like god tier. It has Keith fucking David in it.
The Arbiter himself,
The Arbiter himself is in this dub, and it's
Spawn.
amazing.
I'm trying to think of other roles that Keith David
Gargoyle.
did. Was he in
He was in
Gargoyles?
Gargoyles, yeah.
I I vaguely remember that show, but I don't remember it that much.
But
But
yeah,
yeah, if you don't have a hate boner for Chinese anime, I would recommend watching the Daily Life of the Immortal King. It's funny. It's
mm,
fucking funny.
all right, sweet. Um, I guess it's my turn now, huh?
Yeah.
Uh, shifting gears to something completely different. I want to talk about interspecies reviewers.
Now I remember Interspecies Reviewers. The only thing I remember about it when it first aired was it Sentai that had it right originally?
Yeah, I
They
think
were
yes. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was
oh
Sentai.
no, Funimation. Funimation.
Oh yeah. So originally it was picked up by Funimation, and they apparently didn't realize what they had, and they're like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, it was like a major controversy. Like they after episode 2 aired, they dropped it from their network and were like, "Yeah, we didn't realize it was going to be this much pornographic material cuz
Yeah.
it's basically hentai. It's
It's
just
like
porn."
it's literally like half a step away from just jumping over the line to hentai.
Yeah, so I didn't know anything about interspecies reviewers other than the controversy. I'm like, it's kind of like porn. And then I watched the first episode. I was like, okay, yeah, no, it's basically just porn. Like I can't believe this aired on TV. Holy crap.
I mean, to be fair, it aired very late at night on a
But
premium cable channel in Japan.
but I do know that I wanted to read the source material, so I went and read the manga. The manga is not as perverted as the anime. Like that's one of the crazy things to me. The source material is not as perverted as the anime adaptation. It's more surgical and clinical. Like they'll so the basic premise of interspecies reviewers, if you couldn't tell, is that they go and review other species.
They review prostitutes, basically.
They go and they hit up brothels and they go to like, oh, let's have sex with
They
Haruki.
leave Amazon reviews of prostitutes.
Yeah, that's literally the show. And in the manga, in the source material, it's a lot more surgical. There is some bits of comedy here and there, but it's more about like analyzing the mating rituals and like the anatomy of monster girls. It's very
Of people who are different from the main characters.
yeah. It's just it's clinical. It's educational. It's the
And it's
science team.
and for those who haven't seen it, it does take place in this it's not an isekai, but it takes place in this fantasy world where there's dozens and dozens of very different species of creatures that
Yeah.
exist.
And then the anime comes out and it's just like they went balls to the wall all porn, dude. I swear.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. It's if you're not expecting it, especially in that first episode, boy, are you in for a shock. Yeah, I mean, you're in for the shock of your life because it goes and it just never stops. It never stops.
Can I just say though, I enjoyed the manga a lot more than the anime, just because
Really?
because I think that the idea behind like interspecies reviewers is just basically reviewing the anatomy and workings of other species. I think that's interesting as a concept itself.
Yeah.
Like, how would a mating how would you mate with like a fire based like elemental or some shit? You know, it's like, all
Yeah,
right,
fire demon or something.
yeah, it's like you wouldn't unless you had lava resistance. So it's like, how would you fuck a slime girl, or how would you fuck a harpy because they lay eggs? And it's like, it's to me, it's more interesting learning about their anatomy and how they would get around things like that.
Yeah.
Like I remember they talk about having sex with centaur girls, and it's like, oh, because centaur girls are they're basically, they're horses. So it's like
Mhm.
they have a mouth, but because they're horses, they don't have fine dexterity skills, so they can't really like,
Kiss
well, they can't use their mouth for
or
activities.
use it for other things.
Use their mouth for activities because they could accidentally bite something off that you don't want it to be bitten off. They can chop through carrots pretty easily, bro.
And let's not even think about the horse guys.
So yeah, it's like they explore like how that all works and stuff, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. And then there's the anime where it's just like, no, we don't really care about the scientific side. Let's just basically shoot porn every episode. It's like,
I do
I
like
get it.
how
It's funny, but
I mean, I haven't read the manga, but I've heard you talk about it a lot and how it is. It does seem like both do kind of have a very similar theme about learning to appreciate the differences that people have
yeah.
in different ways.
Yeah, and to me, I like world building quite a lot. So I like things that discuss uh things like anatomy, because how in the world would you have a half like in D&D, right? A
Yeah.
half dragonborn, right? How would that work? I don't think that could work. Like,
I mean, even you see it in science fiction too, like in Star Trek, there are like half breed species, and I'm like, these are different species from different planets. How does that even work?
yeah, because like the reproductive system of a human is not compatible with another thing.
Yeah,
Like, just not even if we include the whole DNA sequencing and like the 20, was it 23 from each parent?
23 pairs of chromosomes.
Yeah. So
Uh,
it's, to me, it doesn't, like,
I
I
mean, the
I
closest
don't
thing
like,
we ever had on this planet in reality was when Homo sapiens interbred with Neanderthals, which did happen.
yeah, because they were like
They
genetically
were the
close
same. They
enough.
were human species. They were both human species,
Yeah. They were
but I
both
just
Homo erectus.
well, they were both Homo. They were
They're both
homos. They were
homos.
just a bunch of homos hanging out. But yeah, I do like the fact that they do kind of granted in the manga it does sound like they explore it way more thoroughly, but both the anime and the manga do kind of look at all these differences, and maybe it's okay to appreciate the differences while still recognizing that there are some.
Yeah. I mean, the anime is fun.
It's
Again,
it's
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 really
basically
fun.
just porn. You really can't be watching it out in public or anything like
Or
that.
yeah, I put on here that I recommend it to just about anyone as long as you're 18 plus.
Yeah, because it's basically just porn.
I mean, it kind of is. I There is a little bit of commentary here and there throughout the anime. There's one conversation that's had toward the end of the anime. It's like one character says to another, "Yeah, can you even imagine? There's worlds out there where we can't use magic to not get pregnant or not get sexually transmitted diseases."
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it'd be great if you could just cast a spell and it's like you don't have to worry about getting pregnant.
We have something like that. It's called a magic pill.
No, it's called hysterectomy. It's magic.
Yeah. But all right. Um, let's
I was
see.
pleasantly surprised by interspecies reviewers. I did not go into it thinking I would enjoy it anywhere near as much as I did.
I Again, I thought it was all right. I didn't enjoy it as much as like someone like you did, for example, just because again, I was just like, I felt like the anime was just the shock value of like making it more perverted and more like porn was just kind of just because I compared it to the source material, I thought it like is a good direction to certainly get people to tune in. But I'm like, you're losing the allure of like why the manga is actually seen pretty good.
Mm.
But it it made waves. It definitely did. People would
Yeah,
not stop
that's
talking
for
about
damn
it.
sure. I do want to point out that it came very close to being our anime of the year for 2020.
I would have not done that even remotely in 2020. Though to be fair, 2020 didn't have too much to pick from either.
That well, there was a slight reason for that.
Yeah. Oh man, I wonder why.
If it hadn't have been for Great Pretender coming out at the very end of the year, it probably would have been our
Oh,
anime of
Great
the
Pretender
year.
is so good
It's
though.
so good.
All right. Let's talk about Free Ren.
Yes,
So
let's do that. I love talking about Free Run.
I
My
like
boomer
how
elf wife.
I like how I was like, yeah, I don't. This episode's mainly about trying to talk about shows that aren't super hyped up and on them in the mainstream. And I'm
So
going to
let's
talk
talk
about
about
the
Free Run.
let's talk about the most mainstream anime out right now, which is Free Ren. I remember again, I think it was in the tie that was like, "Yo, Free Ren's gonna be pretty good." Music by Evan Call, so we're like, "Okay, the music's gonna be good," but it was like by
Madhouse, seeing that it was done by Madhouse, I think made us a little leery because Madhouse has not been what they used to be.
yeah, and on top of that, I I always take it with a grain of salt when I see like this is a most anticipated anime.
Hmm. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not.
Well, there's certain shows that are overhyped, so I had tempered expectations. I went in thinking like, okay, is this show overhyped or not? And I can say I watched the first episode and I thought it was great, but I felt like it was a little overhyped. But I kept watching, and by episode 3, that's when I really fully realized like, okay, this show is actually really good. Like because it's the story that starts at the end of a story,
Yeah,
and
that's
it's
why it's called. The subtitle is Beyond Journey's End.
like other than the fact that Yoasobi does the first opening, which is a fucking amazing song, and then oh my god, who does the ending song? Millicent,
I believe so.
Millie something. But it's got beautiful music. Evan called it a bang up fucking job on the soundtrack, and I
He
really
has quickly
enjoy.
become like a go-to, like top tier anime soundtrack composer.
Yeah. But Free Rent to me it lived up to the hype. I'm gonna be honest here. I didn't have much expectations for it again, just because when I see people not shutting up about a show that I haven't seen or like read or anything, then it's like, is it really gonna be great? Let's find out.
The EDU we're talking about is called Anytime Anywhere by Malay.
Malay, okay, like Millicent. That's a NPC from Elden Ring.
Okay.
But I think that anyone I don't have to talk about Free Reign too much because everyone knows about Free Reign. It's really good, but I just wanted to say I thought it was not going to be as good as it was. It definitely is as good as it is. Definitely exceeded my expectations and then some.
See, that's at least two anime from 2023 that were super hyped that you were leery about and you ended up enjoying them.
Yeah.
The other one was Oshinoko.
Well, again, because I didn't know anything about Oshinoko, and then I watched it, and then
Then
after
you're like,
like,
"Oh fuck."
well, no, it was stupid because I only had to listen to Yoasobi's opening Idol so many times before the anime actually came out that I just said, fuck it. Because I remember the first episode came out and it was like an hour long, and I was like, oh, I don't want to watch that right now. But I kept listening to Idol. I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go read the manga. And I read the manga. And I was like, yo, this is really good. And then I watched the anime. I was like, yo, that's really good.
Yeah. If I had a nickel for every time that John was thoroughly impressed by the most hyped anime of the season in 2023, I'd have two nickels. It's not a
Which
lot, but
isn't a
it's weird it
lot.
happened twice.
Yeah, it is weird that it happened twice. Normally I'm fucking cynical as shit.
Especially with stuff that people are hyping up.
Especially when people recommend me things. That makes it doubly worse.
Which I like the fact that earlier today, Chinoda in our Discord server in our private chat was hyping up something, and you're like, "I'll check it out," and then you come back and say, "This is shit."
I mean, it has potential, but I think it's pretty bad so far. But it's only the first episode, you know. I said I'd give it the 3 episode shake.
Yeah.
Then after that, we'll decide.
I also completely agree with what you wrote down here about Freerin. Would recommend to anyone who wants a great story about learning to stop and smell the roses.
Yeah, we discussed a little bit about free run before we started recording, and that's what's the to me that's the main draw of free run as a story. It's like it's an adventure story, sure, but it's more about a long-lived elf who has learned to stop and smell the roses. Like that's
Yeah.
it's interesting because you know she's someone who has lived for thousands of years and doesn't really think about lifespan. Like you know,
To her, a
humans.
decade is like 5 minutes.
Yeah, to her, a decade. It's like I've only known you a decade. I barely know you, and it's like you know because she's lived for fucking what
A
3,000,
thousand, 1500
five
years, something like
five
that.
thousand years or some shit. She's old. She's lived like 3,000 years or something.
I don't know. I just know in the one episode she says to Aura that you're talking to a mage who's lived for over 1,000 years.
I swear she said, yeah, I swear she said like a 3,000-year-old mage, but whatever.
Also, I want to point out the English dub for Freerin is really good.
I haven't checked out the English. I like it in Japanese.
It's really good. Anyway, I guess it's my turn again. What do I want to talk about? All right, I want to talk about something that kind of disappointed me. We haven't really talked about that yet.
Things that
Uh,
disappoint me.
well, there are many things that disappoint me. Shinoda being one of them. Um, no, I want to talk about Fate Zero. Now, put away your pitchforks. Just shut up and let me
No,
talk.
no, hear me out. All right, I gotta preface this before you preface it.
Okay.
You hate Fate.
I do not hate Fate.
You hate Fate.
No. I
You
think it is
just
definitely
hate
overhyped
Fate.
for what it is.
I just want to say, I agree. I don't think Fate is worth the hype. I definitely was. Again, I maybe because I started with Fate Stay Night and I was like, this was horrible.
You mean the
Dean,
Studio Dean one?
the Studio Dean Fate. Uh, I did like Fate Zero, but I think that the Fate series as a whole is overhyped. I don't really care about the Fate series. I don't understand why people like it so much.
Waifus. That's literally it.
Yeah, it's just a waifu collector, like waifu
It's the same
husbando
reason
collector.
people like gotcha games. It's just waifu collectors.
Yeah, and it's like that. I don't. I understand that Type Moon, the people who created the Fate
Fate,
series,
which was
because it's
originally a
a
porn game.
yeah, it's a visual novel, porn visual novel, right?
Yeah.
Or an edoge.
Edoge.
So I understand that it's not supposed to have like amazing writing. And I think that the only reason Fate has gotten as popular as it has, because especially when you look at like Type Moon's art style and stuff, is because Ufotable took over and did the designs and made them look way better.
Yeah.
I think that that's part of why it's so popular.
And that's something I did want to talk about. So I went into watching Fate Zero knowing very little about Fate as a whole, as a franchise, besides the fact that I knew it was widely popular and I knew some basics about the story. I knew things like about the Holy Grail War and things like that. I knew like the mechanics of how that works. But that's it. That's all I knew. I also knew the character of Saber was wildly popular because she's
Yeah,
fucking everywhere when it comes to Fate. Um
she's kind of the main character.
yeah.
It's
So
King
that's
Arthur,
really
bro.
all I went in with. And I was told that Fate Zero is a good place to start if you're trying to get into the Fate series because it's largely, I think, a prequel to everything that comes after it.
Yes.
And it kind of the way the story is written, it kind of assumes you don't know a whole lot about Fate and how that universe works. Because it does spend a good deal of time in the opening episodes kind of explaining the world and the universe and everything, which I appreciated. Um, I think that technically Fate Zero is very well produced. Like the art and animation is good. The character designs are pretty good and memorable. The fight scenes are really well animated. Um, and the music is really good as well. Um, the story just doesn't resonate with me. Like, and I think a lot of it has to do with how most of the characters are written. They're just boring blank sheets. Except for Ryder. Ryder's fucking awesome.
Of course, you'd like the himbo, but
Yes.
um,
Should
yeah,
be played by Markiplier.
I agree that the Fate series is not well written.
Mm,
The story is kind of just whatever.
yeah.
And then I feel like I'm valid in this opinion because Fate Ilya Prisma exists,
the
bro.
the lowly
The
bait
lowly
show,
fucking show. Like it's
which maybe I
so
should watch that. Maybe I'd like that.
Yeah, listen, the fact that that even exists, right? I can't take your fucking series seriously if you literally have a show that's just fucking child porn. That's gross. What the fuck is wrong with you? Type 0 or Type Moon. But um I thought Unlimited Blade Works was really good.
Which I haven't
Again,
seen, so I can't really judge that, but
yeah, like you said, on a technical scale, I think the Fate series, other than Fate Stay Night, because that was by Dean, the ones done by Ufotable on a technical
are all
scale,
technically well done.
yes. But for me, it can't just look good and be animated good and have good sound design. It
And
also
good
has to have a
music.
good fucking story.
Yeah.
Like if I don't enjoy the characters, like the character writing, and I don't enjoy the story and what's happening, it's hard for me to like a show.
And that's my biggest gripe is I feel like all of the characters, except for Ryder, are painfully dully written.
Yeah. So you heard it here. ACAD hates Fate.
I'm not saying that I wouldn't give another part of the Fate series a try at some point. Maybe Unlimited Blade Works is actually better than Fate Zero. I don't know. I know that there's a lot of people out there who prop this up specifically because Gennaro Abuchi wrote the show. Like he wrote all because apparently this is an original story. It's not based on any of the light or any of the visual novels. Um, and people praise it all the time. It's like, I've seen a lot of the stuff that Gennaro Abuchi's written. This is down on the bottom of the list.
Yeah. He was able to make Out No Zero almost compelling, and then he stopped writing after like the first two
Ap- After
episodes.
the first 2 or 3
Two or
episodes, and
three, yeah.
I like how people sometimes he's even come out and said it because people were blaming him for how bad that series got, and he's like, "No, no, 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 that wasn't me. The first 2 episodes were me, and then everything else was somebody else that I handed it off to."
Yeah. Like it started off kind of interesting, and then he stopped writing for the show, and that's uh,
And I remember when that show first came out, they were heavily advertised and like written by Gennaro Abuchi. And it's like that needs a massive asterisk next to it. It's like the first 2 episodes.
yeah. So all
I don't
right.
know. I get why some people like the Fate series. Like if you're into like waifu collecting and just waifu wars, you'll probably love Fate. If that's what you're going in for, you'll love it. If you actually want a decent, compelling story with interesting characters, look watch the Monogatari series because you'll get a lot of that waifu collecting just
And
with way better writing.
you also get all the porn too, man.
That too.
Oh god.
Can I since I brought up Monogatari, can
Yeah,
I just
go
talk?
right ahead. Go
All
go
right.
segue into Monogatari since
So,
you also have
so I
Monogatari here.
for those who know, both myself and Natai spent a year and a half, or no, almost 2 years, doing spoiler cast for all of the Monogatari anime here on this podcast. If you haven't seen it and you like the Monogatari series, I highly recommend you go watch our spoiler cast series that we did. But I want to say it was about 5 or so years ago, they announced that they were doing a manga adaptation of the Monogatari series. And as a Monogatari fan myself, I went into this very dubious about it. It's like after all these years, because Monogatari was originally a light novel, it was adapted pretty faithfully into an anime adaptation. Um, that's really well regarded. And I thought after, 10, 15 plus years, why do we need a manga adaptation of the same story? So that's what I went into this with. The manga is it's sort of loosely based on Nisio Isen's work with the light novels of Monogatari, but it's drawn and written by O'Great, who, for those of you who don't know, is a phenomenal artist. This is the cover art for Volume One. It's pretty damn good. But the thing that's really compelling about this is while the characters look and sort of talk like their characters in the light novel, the story is very different. Like the overall story is kind of the same about, saving people from apparitions, but the way they go about it is very different. And I think that's the thing that's most compelling to me, even as a fan of Monogatari, and I've read all the light novels, even the ones that aren't officially translated yet. Sorry about that. Um, I was like thoroughly compelled by the story in this because even I don't know exactly what's going to happen. Like, a great example, and this is not to spoil too much about it. Like, Episode is a character that appears once or twice in the entire Monogatari series. In the manga, he's a much more like uh important character, even though he still doesn't appear that much. Like,
Mhm.
you see the results of his actions way more in the manga than you do in the anime or the light novels.
Yeah, and I will always stand by the fact that, or the statement that I made that Monogatari is the best anime that no one's ever heard of. Like, it seems like such a small cult following of people think it's amazing because it is
Mm.
amazing, right?
Yeah.
But like no one knows about it. It's insane. It's like Nisio Isid is a really good writer and everyone loves his works, but no one knows about him. It's unfortunate.
It is very unfortunate. And I think there's a lot of people that go into Monogatari with a very preconceived notion. Like, they see something like the toothbrush scene, which, yeah, it's really weird. Even in context, it's really, really weird and hard to explain. But that's all they know about it because that's all they've ever seen.
Yeah, if you if you were to just base your opinion of the Monogatari series off of the memes with the toothbrush scene or the Hachikuji freaking throwing up in the air and kissing her chest thing,
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, this show is. It's like, yes, even in context, you really can't explain it, honestly speaking. But uh, listen, that's not the main draw of the series. That's just part of it.
Yeah. And I do like how Nisio Eason has said that even though the story of this is very different, he considers it canon in an alternate universe.
Yeah.
So I I love it. I did not expect this to be any. I knew it was probably going to be like drawn really well because I'm familiar with O'Gray and his like previous works. So I knew it was probably going to be. It was going to look good, but I had no idea he was going to change the story as much as he did and actually make it like compelling for longtime fans, not just new fans of Monogatari.
Yeah, I know. You kept posting that one panel with like Shinobu surrounded by guns.
Yes.
And I'm just like, it looks really cool. It's like it's like was it Knives Out? Is that the movie poster I'm thinking of?
You talking about the one where the guy's surrounded by all the guns? That's a John Wick poster.
No, the knives. It's originally with all the knives. That's where like it comes from. There was a movie poster where someone's surrounded by a bunch of knives. Like
It
everyone's
may
like,
be Knives Out. I don't know.
I feel like that was Knives Out, but
I do know there's a John Wick movie poster where he's surrounded by people, holding guns at him.
I swear that's a Knives Out reference. But anyway, yeah, I definitely would recommend. I mean, it's hard for me to recommend the Monogatari series because I watched that when I was in high school,
Mm.
just because I watched a different show that was like Monogatari, which was about like this guy who he's like kind of like a priest guy going around. It was a weird show. I really liked it though. It
Trying to
was
think of what
something
you might have
Monogatari.
watched.
Uh, but it was something Monogatari. I don't remember what it was actually called, but point is, I came across Bake Monogatari on accident,
Mm.
and the Monogatari series on accident, and it was hard to watch because there's a lot of talking, a lot of fast paced dialogue, and I had to pause a lot to read like the text on screen. And it's hard to sell that as a good anime to people who, especially to people who are new to anime.
Yeah.
It's really hard
I would not
because
recommend anything about the Monogatari series to people who are new to anime.
yeah, it's hard to get into, and I feel like because it's not newer noob friendly, it's hard to recommend to anyone to watch because a
It's
lot of
also very
people.
difficult to recommend to people who know very little about Japanese culture because there's a lot of Japanese cultural references in Monogatari.
Yeah, and it's like it's one of those things that it's hard to translate. It's hard to just recommend,
Yeah,
even
it
though it's
is.
so good. It's a shame.
And also it's probably difficult. Well, it's difficult for me to recommend to some people because I know people who are relatively newer to anime like watching dubs. Monogatari's never gotten a dub, and it never will.
Yeah, because half of the jokes would never land.
No, half of the jokes don't work outside of the Japanese language.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I got. I was very pleasantly surprised with how well this manga series has turned out.
Oh.
Also, they turned Kaiki into like a certified DILF.
Oh my god. Kaiki best girl.
Yes.
The one thing that started this podcast.
Yes. It'll always come back to that. Anyway, what do you got, John?
Uh Ningen Fushin, adventurers who don't believe in humanity will save the world. Now, I read the manga prior to the anime coming out,
Mhm.
and I thought that the manga was all right. I didn't have any gripes with it.
Okay.
It's about adventurers who get dicked by their parties. Like one of them gets left for dead, another one gets kicked out and like just scammed, and another guy gets framed for sexual assault and kicked
Oh,
out.
superb.
Yeah. So basically, it's a collection of people. Unlike it's a motley crew
It's like it
of
was like watching the ACAD people play D&D is what it was.
it's a motley crew of adventurers who hate other adventurers because they're like people are the fucking worst, and they're unlikely heroes that have to save the world.
Mhm.
Uh, the interactions between the characters are pretty good in my opinion, but the anime was just bad. Like there's this one scene where I don't even remember the main character guy's name now, but he's walking down the stairs and they just like forgot to animate it. So it's just like he's just sliding down the stairs.
Is it like is he like on the one of those moving sidewalks?
No, it's like they didn't bother to actually animate him walking downstairs. So they just tilted the like he's walking on a plane and it's just like going down in, like a slope and it looks so goddamn awful.
I thought you were gonna say they did like a really awkward match cut where they show him at the top of the stairs and then instantly he's at the bottom.
No, they probably should have did that. That would have been better than the whole like gliding down a slope stair. It's so dumb. Like glaring animation issues aside, the anime just didn't really enrapture me like the manga did because it's like the story is basically about the power of friendship and these people learning to enjoy each other's company and like having faith in humanity, and literally the superpower is that these adventurers can combine bodies
Hmm.
because of this one ancient relic, because it's
Bio
about their
powers
bonds.
combined.
Yeah, no, like they can fuse into like they whatever class is the Nick, main guy's name is Nick, and he's like a thief class. But then there's also like this dragonborn warrior class, and they can fuse together. And because it's like they get to know each other, right? You understanding someone else's heart,
Hmm.
creating bonds and stuff. That's literally what it's called.
This sounds
Uh,
like it was a interesting idea that was muddled by its adaptation.
yeah, I thought that it was an interesting idea. For whatever reason, the anime just did not do a good job selling it to anyone. Like us
Mm,
again, aside from the glaring animation issues, just the everything else about did it lacked the nuance that the manga did.
mhm.
And it's just a shame because I was looking forward to this, and then I watched it and I was like, oh,
Oops.
what happened?
Oops.
Like, it'd be one thing if the source material was bad from the get-go, because
Mhm,
I can be like, "Okay, well, the source material sucks, so if the anime sucks, par for the course." But it's like the source material doesn't suck. It just wasn't really translated that well.
mm.
It just seemed goofy. So, that's just it's a shame, it surprised me in a bad way.
Yeah, I mean, it always is a shame when there's like interesting source material that does get adapted into an anime where the anime is clearly, or the adaptation has clearly been muddled by its change in medium.
Yeah, like, Way of the House Husband. The manga is
Yeah.
fucking phenomenal. I love reading the
And I feel
manga.
like the anime could actually be good if it were fucking animated.
Yeah, the anime I haven't seen season 2, so maybe they fixed it in season
No, they
2.
didn't.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, The Way of the House Husband is, another example of, like, I I was looking forward to it, and then I saw the trailer, and I was like, "Oh, no. It's not animated. Oh,
And then you
no."
think to yourself, "Oh, it's a trailer. Maybe it's just like, test footage or whatever." And then you watch
I
the anime and it's like, "Oh my god, it's the same thing."
I think it's an unfortunate thing, but generally, if you watch an anime trailer and they don't release any of the animation,
That's a
it
bad sign.
it's a very bad sign that it's got bad animation.
Unless it's a very early teaser trailer.
Yeah, there's like PV1, PV2, and stuff like that. Then
Yeah.
there's trailer ones and trailer twos. You know,
If
PVs are
it's
the
like
previews. So
if it's a teaser trailer that's coming out like a year before your anime is supposed to premiere and there's not much to it, then I think you're okay because that's just announcing, hey, we're doing this animation.
yeah, but then when you get to like trailer one and trailer two, and it's like it only shows you here's art from the source material and what the character looks like and who they're voiced by. It's like I don't see any animation for the show. This is pretty god awful.
There was
And
an anime that we talked about in I think the winter preview that I watched its trailer and like half of the trailer was just showing panels from the manga and I'm like, this is
yeah, just
not
the
a good
stills. That's
sign.
the one I'm talking about. Then I watched the show and I was like, wow, it's poorly animated. It was terrible.
This is not a good sign.
Yeah, so Negan Fushin though, it didn't look bad in the trailer. So I was kind of excited for it, and I was very disappointed. I definitely wouldn't recommend watching Negan Fushin. Definitely just if you care about the story about the power of friendship and people getting over the traumas of being betrayed and learning to trust one another again, definitely give it a shot.
Which is an interesting concept. Like,
Yeah, because
you start out getting fucked over and then you have to learn how to trust people.
yeah, because it's I mean, it's a very relatable thing, getting your trust betrayed, and then, it's also a found family trope because, again, these 4 adventurers find each other and, they become friends and close to each other
Mhm.
and learn to trust people again, and then they go and save the world.
Yay.
Yay!
Can we talk about Hell's Paradise? Because I think this is one you and I both wanted to talk about
Okay, so I one of the other super hyped up shows was
from
Hell's
last year.
Paradise. From last year was Hell's Paradise. And again, because people are like, "Oh, it's really good. It's hyped up." It was like the third most anticipated anime of the season or some shit, or second most or whatever. I was like, I don't know anything about this. Apparently, I know that the manga was apparently super popular. So I was like, okay, that's all I know about it. So I went and I watched it. I'm like, okay, it's got a kind of interesting concept. And then it kind of just stays like it's kind of interesting, but kind of not interesting. Like, at first you think,
Mhm.
"Oh, it's gonna be a battle royale anime." It's not a battle royale anime.
That's how it presents itself up front, though.
That's how it looks like when you get to from the very beginning, you think, "Oh, a bunch of criminals are getting sent to this island, and they're gonna go do some stuff, so they're gonna kill each other." And then you get to the island, and it's like, "Yo, there's some weird shit on this island." And you're like, "Yo."
It's like the island becomes the actual thing that everyone's fighting against, not each other.
Yeah. And it's really cool, but then they'll show, like, the island and, like, the weird shit that happens on that. They'll show the interesting stuff, and then they'll back off of the interesting stuff for like 2 or 3 episodes to do like character development for uh Gabimaru. Is that the main guy's
Gabi
name?
Mari.
For the characters in the show. And I'm just like, I don't really care. And then
Do you know what I call him? He's
what?
PTSD Bell
PTSD Bell. Yeah.
because he looks like Bell from
Yeah.
Danmachi, but he's clearly got a ton of PTSD.
Yeah, it's like there's a really cool story to be told in Hell's Paradise, but it honestly just stays muddy until you get to the near end. Like, I think starts getting really good around, like, episode 10. That's when it
Yeah.
goes hype and
That's
you get to learn.
that's kind of what I said. Like the first two episodes are kind of interesting because it does a really good job setting this up. Of course, it does in I think episode 3 or 4, it does the whole like turnabout where you think you're going into a battle royale and it's not.
Yeah.
Um, but like the first two episodes, it sets up the world really well. It sets up the stakes really well. Um, and then you have like the middle part of the season, which is like from episode 4 through like 8 or 9, where it's a lot of just wandering. It's kind of all over the place in terms of the writing quality and
Yeah, it's
everything.
like it'll show hints and pieces of, like, very interesting things about the island. Because again, the most interesting thing about Hell's Paradise was the island
Yeah,
once we got there, because I was like, I don't mind battle royale stuff. Like, I liked Batum. I like battle royale
I feel
manga
like
and stuff like
Batum is
that.
a criminally underrated anime.
I think it's all right. It's pretty it's pretty sad.
Yeah, it's very sad.
Because, like, all the people who end up on the island and all this other stuff, and, like, especially Hime, the love interest, I guess you could call her,
Mhm.
of the show, like, how she ends up there, and, like, just it's terrible. Whatever what happened to her and her friends is just terrible. But, it definitely didn't go as hard as the manga did with, like, the sexual assaults and stuff, because that was
Thankfully.
yeah. Well, Batum is criminally underrated, but I like battle royale shows. Like I
Mhm.
like Darwin's Game. As stupid as Darwin's Game is, I like Darwin's Game. Um,
So you're saying you like Mirai Nikki?
I did like Mirai Nikki.
Oh God! Don't tell the tie.
I know. We looked at my mouth. I rated Mirai Nikki like an 8 out of 10,
Oh
bro.
my
I liked
God!
it.
Oh my God!
But yeah, so I don't have anything against battle royales. So that's why going into Hell's Paradise, I was like, yeah, it's fine. I don't care. If it's a battle royale, whatever. Like we have
I
a
do like
main
how all of
character.
the characters that end up on the island are very different from each other.
Yeah. And I just don't like that the interesting thing once they do the turnabout and you're like, "Oh, the island is like, oh, what is up with the island? Weird fucking monsters, weird shit's happening." And it's like, "That's cool. I like that."
Yeah.
And then they just like don't show you too much of it. And then you hit episode like 10 and that's when it's like, "Okay, we're back to the actual like here's more shit about the island." I'm like, "Oh, this is the really cool stuff." So it's
Yeah.
hard for me to like recommend Hell's Paradise to people because if you gave it a typical 3-episode shake like I do for most anime,
Mhm.
I can't recommend it because it takes 10 episodes to get to the interesting shit. Like,
Yeah.
it's not bad, but it's just not great until episode 10. But
Like
once
if
you
you
get
go
there,
in
though.
expect and especially if you go in expecting a battle royale, which is not only how the first 2 episodes present it to be, but also how all of the trailers present it to be.
Yeah, but, once you get to episode 10 and you start learning about the story and stuff, it gets really interesting and really good.
Yeah.
So, I definitely think it lived up to the hype, but I it's hard to recommend it because again, recommending a show that, "Hey, man, you gotta watch, like, at least 10 episodes of to really get till it really gets good," 'cause that's a hard sell to me, man. Like, if you can't
Yeah.
enrapture me in the first hour of your show, your movie, why would I wanna watch it? Like,
Exactly.
and it kinda sucks because Steins Gate to me is like that. Steins Gate is kinda like it's kinda
It's a
okay,
slow burn.
interesting. It is. Steins Gate
Hell's
is
Paradise is a
very
slow burn.
yeah, and just like Hell's Paradise, Steins Gate gets really good around, like, episode 9. Episode 7, it starts to actually pop
The
off.
big difference is Steins Gate is a 25 episode show. Hell's
Yeah,
Paradise
and
is
Hell's
13
Paradise
episodes.
13. But it's getting a second
It
season,
is
so
getting a second season.
but
At
yeah.
least with Steins Gate, you didn't have to wait 2 or 3 years to see how it ended.
Yeah. I think that for Hell's Paradise, I would recommend it just on the premise alone because, not the battle royale premise, but, like, the island, the whole mystery of the
Mhm.
island and stuff. That is super cool and interesting.
Yeah.
Like, I wanna
I
learn so much more about it.
which hopefully we will in season 2.
Yeah. I guess I could just go read the manga, but
You could.
I'm not that invested into it.
You won't, but you could.
Yeah. I've got other things I'm reading, it's fine.
All right, the last thing I want to talk about, speaking of things that are super hyped up, Mashoku Tensei. So if you watch this podcast, you know I'm not an easy sell when it comes to isekai. Although I do know that John, going into when this anime came out, you had read the original source material, which is the web novel.
Correct.
The adaptation of Mashoku Tensei is based on the light novel, which is the more refined version of the web
Yeah.
novel.
And,
Um,
one of our commentators,
wh-
comments,
People who
someone
commented
comment
on our videos,
yeah, about, like, how it's a lot more different in the light novel, and I'm just like, "Oh," because again, I'm basing it off of the web novel, which is not that
yeah,
refined, but, I
we,
really
we've
like
said it
the
on
web
this
novel.
podcast before. Web novels are essentially first drafts.
Yeah. The one where they don't have an editor.
Yeah. Yeah,
And,
because
like
most of the people that like publish those web novels on these web novel sites, like in Japan, they don't go back and edit their stuff.
no,
They just write it and they just throw it up there.
well, like Overlord, the web novel for Overlord, it doesn't have one of the best characters, Albedo.
Albedo.
She doesn't exist in the web novel. She's
Yeah.
made for the light novel.
It's amazing what happens when your editor gets a hold of something and says, "You know what made this better?"
Hot waifu.
Yes, hot waifu,
Hot psycho waifu.
hot crazy bitch.
That's right. I've got a
Yeah,
type.
yeah, you do. You definitely do. Um, but no, Mashoku Tensei. So I went into this. Obviously, it was kind of hyped when it started airing, and I held off watching it for a while. In fact, I held off watching it until the first season had finished airing.
Right.
Um, and I went and watched the whole thing. I binge watched it over the course of a weekend. Um, I went in with very very tempered expectations. I was expecting a generic isekai, which the setup to it is kind of generic isekai. Dude is a piece of shit in real life and gets hit by a truck and gets reincarnated. Like that's the setup.
Well, no, he saves
He,
2 kids from getting hit by a truck.
he does, but he does get hit by a truck.
Yeah, he gets isekai.
He gets isekai'd by
I know
truck
he
too.
gets tensei'd. He doesn't get isekai'd.
Well,
Isekai
it's
is
both.
transported.
It's
Yeah.
both. It
Eh,
is an isekai because it's a different world,
that's true. Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
it's a reincarnation isekai, not like a summoned isekai
Yeah.
or like a backrooms isekai.
The tensei isekai.
Um, but if you can look past the isekai tropes of how it starts, and you have a high tolerance for sexual stuff because there's a lot of sexual stuff in the first season. Um, there's a really good story with the main character realizing that he lived his life as a piece of shit, getting a second chance, and it's like, okay, I actually have the chance to be a better person this time.
And he
And he's
actually
not
makes
perfect. And
yeah,
he's not perfect. He relapses from time to time.
but he I mean, I'm a little biased because again, Sugita voices the inner monologue voice of Rudy, and
Yeah.
I fucking love Sugita. If Sugita's in it, I'll watch it. Doesn't
Even if
matter
it's
what it is,
shit.
I'll watch it.
Remember that anime that Sugita was in where it was like literally nationalist propaganda?
No, which one is that?
Was that the firefighter isekai? Or not
Oh,
isekai, the firefighter anime that came out like 3 or 4 seasons
yeah,
ago?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Was Sugita? Oh yeah, he was in there. He was the old guy.
He was the old guy, and the
Yeah, yeah,
anime
that's
is like
right.
literally just like nationalist propaganda.
Yeah, we hate illegal aliens. The anime.
Yes.
And
Um,
oh god, it was
but
so
no,
bad.
the big reason why I like watching Mushoku Tensei, number it is a bit it is a bit of a slow burn story as well, which I've come to appreciate those. Not like slow burn in the sense of One Piece because there's such thing as too slow of a slow burn.
I don't think
Um,
One Piece is a slow burn anime.
1,000 plus episodes, man. That's
It's not. I don't think it's slow burned. I think from the get go, we know what the story is from literally chapter 1 of the manga. Like the story has not changed. I want to be Pirate King. It's my adventures on collecting a crew and becoming Pirate King, and that is literally what every episode is.
50 years later. Here we still are.
Listen, the One Piece is real. He's gonna collect it one day.
Okay, unless Oda dies.
Oh, don't say that.
Well, we know my history with saying that people are still alive on this podcast.
But yeah, with Mushoku Tensei, I remember I liked it because I was like, again, I prefaced it. I'm biased.
Mhm.
Mushoku Tensei is the very first web novel I have ever finished reading. And I spent months, like I'm talking 2.5, 3 months reading every single web novel chapter.
And it's worth pointing out the web novel itself came out a long time ago.
Yeah, long time ago. So I remember, I'm pretty sure it was Jason that recommended Mushoku Tensei to me. I don't remember
This is back during the
why.
early days of the podcast.
Yeah, because I was reading Overlord first, and then for whatever reason they had a recommendation thing, and Mushoku Tensei was part of the recommendation, and I think it was Jason that recommended it though. I
Well,
don't
I
actually
remember
remember.
Jason talking about in like the first couple years of the podcast. I remember Jason talking about Mushoku Tensei on the podcast back then.
I honestly can't remember. It's been a while. So, but yeah, again, so I already knew I liked the source material. I didn't. My expectations for the anime were just like, just because the source material is good doesn't mean the anime is going to be good. Look at
Mhm.
Overlord. Source material is amazing. The anime is not that great.
First season's pretty good. Everything else,
Yeah, it's the soundtrack and the sound design is really good.
Myth and Royd. I mean, come on.
It's just the piss poor CGI is just real bad. I actually did like season 3 of Overlord.
Mm.
It did better. It's better than season 2 for sure, or season. I think it's actually season 4. I don't remember which
Season 4
season it
kind of
was.
sucked.
What? You didn't watch? Then you didn't watch. Shut up.
I did. I don't really listen.
What?
Season 1 was pretty good. Season 2 was kind of Season 3 was not great, and then season
No,
4
season
was
yeah,
kind of
season 3 was one of the most hyped parts of the light
and they
novel.
yada over like half of it.
Yeah, and then season 4, I really liked the battle with the troll guy.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, first part of season 4 I liked. The second half of season 4 I did not like. They literally skip volumes of the light novel.
Just go watch the light novel or
Or
read the
just
light novel,
yeah, just
please.
do yourself a favor. Go buy the light novel and read them. Like it's just way better. But with Mushoku Tensei, I didn't know if the anime was gonna be a good adaptation. I really didn't. I didn't know anything about it other than like it's finally got an adaptation.
Mhm.
And I was excited because again, it's one of my favorite web novels I've read. So I'm excited to see stuff that I like get animated.
Mhm.
And I remember watching the first episode and being like, "Holy shit, they really took their time with like polishing out the world." Because that's one of the other things that Mishoko Tensei does really well is
World
world
building.
building. And it took its time. It didn't take all of its time to do it because it did live. Mishoko Tensei does leave out quite a lot of stuff, in my opinion. That like it doesn't the stuff that didn't like, go watch our spoiler cast about Mishoko
They
Tensei where
what
I
it
talk
does
about
is it leaves out character building stuff in favor of world building.
yeah, and it's like it's just I hate that because a lot of the appeal of Mushoku Tensei to me is the character depth and building. Like everyone is feels like a
Almost
unique
all of the
person,
characters that you meet are very well developed
and you watch them develop, or you read the story and you develop
over several
you see
years.
them develop over years, and it's really cool. But yeah, I'm glad that Mushoku Tensei like memes aside, like peak anime, peak is back, peak isekai. Uh,
I mean, it is one of the best isekai out there, in my opinion.
yeah, I'd say so. But again,
Yeah,
I'm biased.
I mean,
I know how it ends.
it's true. You do. Has the light novel ended?
I don't know. I like it. I only read the web novel, so I don't know. But eventually, I'll have to go read the light novel because apparently it's a lot better, a lot more refined.
Okay. I gotta check real quick and see if it's yes, it is finished. The light novel ended in on November 25th, 2022.
Oh, okay.
So it is done.
Yeah, maybe I'll maybe I'll buy all of them and read them. I've got
Now's
other
your
light
chance.
novels I'm reading though. It's like I've got three I
But
have
yeah,
that I
I went into it expecting a generic isekai, and while it does have a somewhat generic isekai setup in the beginning, if you like watching someone better themselves over the course of their life, watch this isekai. It's great.
all right. For the last one I'm going to talk about
Okay.
is there's a trending trope in anime lately that's not just isekai.
Hmm.
It's otome isekai.
Oh boy.
Let me tell you.
Let me
So
tell
it
you about otames.
otome isekai is basically the general setup is like I was a lady in the human world and I loved playing this otome game, and then for whatever reason I died and reincarnated into my otome game.
Should we explain what an otame is for those who might not know?
It's an ultimate game is a game. Ultimate just means like girl game. It's a
Hmm.
girl game. It's what it is a portmanteau of. Um
It's like a chick flick, but a game.
yeah, it's games that are primarily centered around like romance and stuff like that, and it's built for women to enjoy.
Hmm.
Essentially, visual novels for girls, I guess. It's actually only an ultimate game doesn't have to be a visual novel, but point is it's games for girls. Uh, Ultimate Isekai, and specifically villainous Otome Isekai, has become very fucking in fact, I think there's 2 or 3
Airing
out
right
this
now.
season airing right now, and I'm watching them. 2 of them are actually pretty good, not gonna lie. But,
It's
the one
amazing how many things that are geared and aimed towards women. It's like, yeah, John will watch that.
what's wrong with watching things for
Oh, there's
women?
nothing wrong with it. It's just funny that you watch so much stuff that's or geared towards women.
It's got good writing, bro, what can I say?
It's nothing wrong with it.
You know, I like staring at himbos. I wish I was a himbo. But, yeah, the most heretical last boss queen, from villainous to savior. It's a mouthful,
Yeah, it
but
is.
I call it the most heretical last boss queen. The most heretical last boss. So basically, the premise is that Otome Isekai. She played this otome game. She reincarnates, but then she reincarnates instead of being the heroine, she's the villainess.
Mm.
And because she's a regular human person, she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna be nice to people instead of being the villainess and being a huge bitch." Yeah, that's it. And the problem is that she's actually super nice and super sweet, and she saves a lot of people and does a lot of good for the world.
Mhm.
But for whatever reason, she keeps thinking like because she's the villainess, she's destined to be evil and she's gonna eventually get killed for it. But she'll like, but even though she thinks that, she still tries her best to be like the best person ever. And everyone around her, instead of hating her and wanting to kill her, are like, "Oh my god, she's literally the saintess. She's our savior. She's the queen." And I I went into this thinking, okay, it's an otome isekai, it's a villainous otome isekai, and I have
The
seen plenty
standards are
of
very
these.
low.
Very low. A lot of it is a lot of the ultimate isekai, villainous ultimate isekai that I watch. I like watching because it's either it's funny and the himbos they got in it are cool guys. They're cool characters, you know, because a lot of ultimate isekai is about like the characters. It's about the characters that are in the harem and
Mhm.
stuff like that, and they're just stand-up people, stand-up individuals, and it's just about the character growth and development between the main cast. And you know, it's a fun time. You don't have to think too hard about it. There's
Cool.
no overbearing like world domination aspect and this and that. And a lot of it is just like fun, turn off your brain, lighthearted, good stuff.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. There's a
Yeah.
lot of that kind of stuff that I've grown to like a lot recently.
So I went into the most heretical last boss thinking like it's gonna be like that, you know, it's gonna be like Bakarina and the other fuck I don't remember what that one was called.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember the title.
Yeah, Katarina, but she's an idiot, so she's from Bakarina. But
Hey, Bacarina. Mm.
I I was thoroughly surprised at the most radical last boss because I didn't know anything about it, and it was one of those situations where I was like, I need to watch something, and I've seen everything this season. Like, let me watch something I don't know anything about. So I tossed it on. I think I was on High Dive. I watched it on High Dive,
I
and
think you may be right about that.
because I don't think it's on Crunchyroll. I mainly watch things on Crunchyroll, but I also watch stuff on High Dive occasionally. So I watched it and I was actually it started off as like a show I watched like in passing, like in the background while I'm doing stuff. And then I
Yeah.
started getting invested in the story. And I'm like, I actually really like the characters. I like the development of the villainess. And overall, I just like the fact that she she's super mega nice to all these people. And it's like she's changing their lives for the better and she wants to do better for the world just because she's a nice person.
Who knew that watching people be nice could be so much fun?
I know. And it's got comedy elements into it, but it's also got like drama thriller elements into it as well. Yeah, it's a weird show because it doesn't
The
follow.
drama I can understand is you put in thriller in there. I'm thinking,
Well, there's suspense and stuff,
okay.
but it's it's just a good watch. I recommend it to anyone who especially if you like Ultimate Isekai stuff. Like it's a pretty good one. To me, it's like one of the standout ones compared to
Okay.
like other freaking Ultimate Isekai.
All right. I think that's everything on our lists.
All right, awesome.
I mean, I know you had originally written down Apothecary Diaries, but I know you guys talked about it a lot during the monthly
I
dump.
was gonna talk about Butareba, Apothecary Diaries, and there's another one. There's a third one, wasn't there?
I think, but I think you deleted it.
Because I already talked a lot about him on the monthly dump, but I
Yeah.
didn't feel like I needed to talk about him anymore.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So yeah, that is so a list of anime that surprised both myself and John, either for good or bad. Let us know down below if there's any anime that surprised you when you watched them, either good or bad, or manga or light novels that you read. Um, tell
Yeah,
us
I
what you
love
went in.
recommendations. Like
Yeah,
anything that people recommend, I do check out.
we love, and there's stuff that people have recommended to us both in our comments on like YouTube or on our Discord server that some of us have gone to watch and or read and ended up liking it. And sometimes we end up talking about it on the podcast. So yeah, let us know down below. Anime that surprised you, good or bad, or if you have any opinions about the stuff that we did talk about, if you agree with us or not. Um, But with that said, I do want to thank everyone for dropping in to watch us. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you like what you saw and want to see more, it really does help us out. Check down below where you can find links to Anime Club After Dark on Twitter, on TikTok, on Discord. We also have a link to our merch store down there where you can really help us out if you want to buy some ACAD themed merch. With that, though, I have been your host, Alex, and I will see you next time. Say goodnight, John.
It's been 2 hours. Let's go. Goodbye.
I
Get
gotta take
out
a.
of here.
I don't know about you. I gotta take a wicked shit.
Oh, gross. Oh, don't end the episode like that. Ugh. Uh-oh,
Uh oh,
stinky.
stinky.